It is that time of the month again. This is my April 2025 wrap up. If you've been watching my channel at all over the last month, you might have noticed what I read for all of April, and that was Dungeon Crawler Carl. I binged the whole series, but I did read other stuff. So we will get the Dungeon Crawler Carl stuff out of the way early, and then we'll move on and talk about everything else I read, because I did read some very good stuff. I made a video about Dungeon Crawler Carl, and holy crap do I love that series. It is just perfect. I had a great time from start to finish. Even in the first book, I could tell that it was going places, and boy was I right. If you want a 15-minute rant or whatever about the series, go check out my video about it. But in this one, we're just going to talk a little about it and then move on. When it comes to the series, I think that a lot of the stuff that people don't like, at least what I've seen so far, is intentional by Matt Dinniman. It is part of the plot in a way that it makes sense that it's there to not be liked by some people. You're like, wow, this is really weird. Why is the AI acting so strange? And it's like, well, you read further on, you figure out why. It's completely intentional. And then some of the crude humor, and then people are like, what's going on with the descriptions and the achievements and in this gear and in the leveling up process, and all of it is there intentionally. Not everything that AI is saying to the crawlers is being broadcast, which you start to figure out at some point in the series. And as soon as that kind of clicked with me, I was like, wait, what is this trying to get across to me when I'm just trying to enjoy the story? There's more to this, and almost every little item is like a Chekhov's gun that is going to come up later, and it's super rewarding to just think about them and try to figure out what clues the author is leaving. So we'll go through the books real quick, and then we'll move on to everything else I read this month. Of course, Dungeon Crawler Carl, first book, not the strongest. It's the first novel in the series, but man, I really had a great time with it. It helps that it's pretty short, so for people who maybe struggled with it a little, you can get through it and get to Carl's doomsday scenario, which is when the books really start cooking. I think that that book does have some lulls, but it really sets the stage for what is to be expected for the rest of the series. So if you go through the first book and you're still kind of iffy, I would say give the second book a try. And if you don't vibe with that at all, then you can just be done, because book 2 is the framework that the rest of the series is built on. The Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, holy crap, it's so good. I mean, I won't say what it's about except choo choo. Like, if you like trains, you're in for a good time. Gate of the Feral Gods, also amazing. I mean, are you sensing a pattern yet? The thing with the Gate of the Feral Gods is it's the first one where the books start to get longer. It really pays off. You just get so much more time in the world, and it is so fun to be there. The humor is very good in this one, but it seems like it was dialed back a little. And the same goes for the Butcher's Masquerade, book 5. Now, the Butcher's Masquerade is a lot more serious. There's some parts of it that are very slow, and it's completely intentional. And while there are some very funny situations in that book, they're not like they were in like the first 2 or 3 books where you're just like, wow, this is like messed up. Like, there's a scene in Carl's doomsday scenario where he puts a dead prostitute on someone's desk because they were being difficult and not working with him, and he basically just sprung it on them to get them to actually have a reaction. But the Butcher's Masquerade has a very serious tone, and it's deserved because that book is brutal. And at the end, it has some of the best dialogue between Carl and Princess Donut in just the most heartbreaking thing. I just can't get over it. It's so beautiful. The whole series is worth reading just to get to that point. Now, The Eye of the Bedlam Bride, book 6, is very goofy. It kind of had some lulls. Like, I think this one has some of the lowest lows when it comes to like how I was feeling about the story, but also the highest highs. One of my phobias is in this book, which is like a loss of control of your own body, and it is absolutely terrifying. I was shook up over it, and that book is just so good, and the dark humor is just on another level in that one, and it's so messed up in like the funniest ways. And then of course, This Inevitable Ruin is all that stuff smashed together. It's book 7 now. The author knows what he's doing. The book is amazing. Best one in the series. So much happens, and I just loved every second of it. So there you go. I'm done with Dungeon Crawler Carl again. For now, I will be reading them again. I will probably be reading them again before the release date of the next book is announced. I'll try to hold off though, but I will say I left all 7 books on my phone so I can start them up whenever I want. After that, I got back to my project for 2025, which is reading everything from Lois McMaster Bujold. I read The Assassins of Thassalon, which is a Pinkerton Desdemona novel, not novella. It's the longest of them. It's actual novel length, and it was wonderful. I think that it struggles a little with pacing because I think it's just that I'm so used to the books being shorter. So when things start to drag, I'm like, wow, what's happening right now? Shouldn't we be close to the end of the story? But it picks up and it really takes off and runs. I think the issue is there's like a journey in here where Penric is like mentoring someone, and it gets pretty boring because it's definitely a rehash of stuff you've already been over in the first 8 novellas. Like I said, after that, it really takes off and I had a great time with it. It just got me invested back into the series, which sucks because there's 3 left and they're novellas. So when I'm done with that, I'm done with Penric and Desdemona, and that's sad, but there will probably be more. Part of my plan for getting over like the book binging hangover I knew I was going to get from Dungeon Crawler Carl was like powering through just one thing after another and just really reset my brain, because I was so bad that for 3 weeks all I did was listen to Dungeon Crawler Carl, to the point that when I would open my phone I'd be like, oh, let's listen to a podcast while I'm doing something. I would click the audiobook player that had Dungeon Crawler Carl on it instead of my podcast app. It was just wired in my brain, go for Dungeon Crawler Carl. So I wanted to power through that, and the way I wanted to do it was like a couple short books and a couple rereads. And the Penric and Desdemona novel was short, but I knew I wanted more than just that over my weekend of enjoying audiobooks. So I read Kaput, The End of the German Miracle by Wolfgang Munkau. I think that's how you say his name. Sorry if it's wrong. That is a very short book about the economic history of Germany for like the last 50 years and kind of how they set themselves up for failure because they have focused on certain industries way too much, especially the automotive industry, but they focused into the automotive industry, but like veered away from electric cars, which seems very short-sighted considering there is a ban on combustion engines in the EU starting in 2030. So that didn't seem wise. It talks about how some of it had to do with culture and government policies, and it also covers this very interesting term, neo-mercantilism, and how a lot of Germany's economic policies are built around exporting goods like that they make in Germany, and that's not really working very well now because energy prices have exploded and they can't find skilled labor for those jobs. Talks about how Germany has a system set up, which I'm an outsider, so I'm probably wrong about this, but this is what it was saying in the book, that the system is kind of set up in a way that it is easy for unskilled labor to come in to the country, but skilled labor has a bunch of hurdles to jump over, and then when they get there, it's not really the best place to be with their skills. It was talking about different types of immigration and how this one person from Cuba wanted to immigrate to Germany. They had skills that were needed by employers in Germany, and they ended up being like, well, we can't hire you because you don't speak enough German. And they were like, fine, I'll go to Spain. And so they just went to Spain. So, well, that sucks for the German employer who was looking for skilled labor outside of the country. From what I can gather, the book is very well researched, very well thought out. It is very well written, and I can recommend it to you if you're interested in learning about German economic policies from the last 50 years. Oh, the other thing it talks about is how they kind of screwed themselves because there were members of political parties that were essentially in bed with Russia and were responsible for Germany's dependence on Russian natural gas. And so, yeah, that didn't backfire at all. After that, I decided to read a detective novel from someone with the last name McDonald. No, it is not John D. McDonald. It is Ross McDonald. And I read The Moving Target from 1949, and it is the first Lou Archer novel. Lou Archer is his Travis McGee, basically. But Lou Archer is much more in the traditional noir detective compared to McGee, who is just like a beach bum who solves mysteries to get paid. He's not really a detective. He doesn't have like a private eye license, unlike Lou Archer, who does. And McGee is in Florida in the 1960s. Lou Archer is in Los Angeles in 1949. This book just oozes noir vibes. It feels a lot like The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler, not in like a copycat way, just in this is also a very good noir detective story taking place in Los Angeles. Like when you read Raymond Chandler, you feel like you are in LA in the 1940s, and it's the exact same way with Ross McDonald. I loved every second of that book. The mystery was very interesting. The twists and turns and action were good. It does the stupid thing where he takes like 20 blows to the head and half of them knock him out. If he got knocked out that many times in 2 days, he'd be a vegetable. So that is annoying, but you just got to understand that going in, that some of this stuff is corny detective crap from the late 40s. But I really liked it. I liked all the characters in it. And I think Lou Archer is a very interesting person to follow. I don't think he's as interesting as Travis McGee, but he is very interesting. And speaking of being as interesting as Travis McGee, I did it. I reread The Deep Blue Goodbye, book 1 in the series. It's even better the second time. I don't know how that would work, hurt because the twist has already been spoiled for me, but it does. John D. MacDonald was a master of his craft. I appreciate that even more reading the first book again. How he made a debut novel that is everything you can expect to see in the rest of the series, I will never know. You know, sometimes you read the first book in a series and you're like, yeah, this is okay. And then people tell you, oh, it really hits its stride by like the third book and you're really invested. No, Deep Blue Goodbye, perfect. And the thing is I know he wrote the first 3 and they didn't decide what order they were going to be published in until after he had written all 3. So when you look at the Deep Blue Goodbye, Nightmare in Pink, and A Purple Place for Dying, they're all just about perfect. I have a greater appreciation for A Purple Place for Dying, kind of the further I've gotten away from it, which can't be too far away from it if I'm going to be reading Nightmare in Pink sometime soon and then A Purple Place for Dying. I just think that it is a step below the Deep Blue Goodbye and Nightmare in Pink. But that all 3 of these he wrote and they were ready to go before he even started the 4th story is just phenomenal. And the thing is in the Deep Blue Goodbye, this time I got to focus more on McGee and how he sees the world and his little tangents he goes on and how he interacts with other people and just kind of his emotional state throughout the whole story, because the first time I'm going through it, I'm focused on learning the world, learning the characters, and trying to solve the mystery. Well, this time I know the mystery and I can see the clues as they're showing up early in the story. And I have to say that the antagonist in the Deep Blue Goodbye is one of the most menacing characters I've ever read. They are absolutely despicable. It makes me feel sick to think about the things that they did to people in this story, and it makes the story somehow even more intense. I know the end result, but it doesn't matter because it was just such a great reread, kind of knowing what it was going in. I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but I just can't get over how good the first book in that series is. I hope that some more people will read it. Please go check out The Deep Blue Goodbye. And if you've checked that out, you gotta read Nightmare in Pink. Nightmare in Pink is like S tier in the John D. MacDonald series. I know I haven't made a retrospective of the series yet, but I'm glad that I had delayed it until after I had read this one, because I think I have a better appreciation for what John D. MacDonald was doing in the series now that I've read them all and gone back to the beginning. I think it will help me do a better job of expressing what is so special about the series when I finally make a retrospective. Another thing I read this month was Shadows Linger by Glenn Cook. Yes, I reread another Black Company novel. It also happens to be one of the best fantasy novels ever written. It sets the gold standard for fantasy mixed with gothic horror. It is perfect. I love that book so much, and reading it for a second time just makes me love it even more than I already did. I really, really like the first novel, The Black Company, but man, is Shadows Linger just something special. If you tried to read The Black Company and either read the first book and was like, I don't think this is for me, or you DNF'd the first book, go back, read the synopsis of the first book, and give Shadows Linger a chance. It is so good. It is everything Glenn Cook is great at doing in this perfect book. When I say it's got elements of gothic horror, I mean it is a gothic horror novel that just happens to take place in a fantasy setting, which does back up the argument that Glenn Cook does not write grimdark. Even he is like, don't know what that is, but I have been accused of it. What he writes is dark fantasy, which is fantasy with elements of horror. And this especially shows that he takes Juniper, which is where the book takes place, and makes it a character. This city of darkness, there's suffering, there are people doing whatever they can to survive, and there is a shadow lingering over the city. Great title. And that shadow grows the more the people of Juniper do depraved things. And as you are reading the book, you see what makes Glenn Cook an amazing author. It is his ability to write very efficiently and to put you into the world in ways other writers wish they could do. When you are reading Shadows Linger, you almost want to look over your shoulder to see if that black mass casting a shadow over the city is behind you. It is so good. Another thing about this book is it shows that Glenn Cook not only is a master of first person, but third person, and it's seamless. The way the story is written is the first person sections are Croker and the annals. The third person sections are someone's story being written by another person. So when Croker writes, he's writing his experience. But when the events of another person are being recorded in the world of the Black Company, generally it is done in third person, which he out and out tells you in the third book. So it's not really a spoiler. It just allows you to understand that culturally, the way things are recorded in the annals of the Black Company, it's telling you more than just what's there at face value, which that's just a little tangent about the Black Company, which I don't need to get into. Maybe when I finish my reread of all of the Black Company, I'll make a dedicated video just about it. But I just want to say, Shadows Linger, perfect book. Anyone who even has an inkling anything of desire to read horror should read this, because if you're watching my channel, chances are you like fantasy. It's just so good. I can't recommend it enough. While I was going back to see how many books I've read, I realized I missed a book, and that is The Bear Went Over the Mountain: Soviet Combat Tactics in Afghanistan by Lester Grau. He was the editor. Now, this book is good. I don't know how many people would be interested in reading about how the Soviets fought the Mujahideen when they were in Afghanistan, but it's pretty good. It reminds me a lot of what I got out of On Guerrilla Warfare by Mao Zedong, and it is the editor. So Lester Grau took a bunch of information about combat that happened in Afghanistan. So he took the Soviet War College reports, and then he put in what the War College wrote at the end of the events, talking about, yeah, they did this was their mistakes, blah, blah, blah. And then he has his own thing that he says about what he got out of kind of how they fought. And now he has a little more hindsight than the Soviet War College. So his information is a lot more complete, and he is very good at expressing kind of what should have been done or what was done right. And the same thing happens in On Guerrilla Warfare. I think the editor's foreword and everything he talks about that gives the guerrilla warfare manual context is actually better than the stuff in the manual, because a lot of it's really dated. Now, the tactics used by the Soviet army in Afghanistan aren't dated in the same way, but you can definitely see that there was a lot of room for improvement. And I think it's great to see what Grau has to say about how the war was fought. And, you know, if you're into this kind of thing, you will like this book. If you're not into this kind of thing, then I'm sorry I talked about it for so long. But if you like military tactics, I can recommend this book. It does get repetitive. So once you've read about 10 of the reports, then you kind of know what to expect through them. So it got to the point where I would skim them and just read what the editors had to say about it, because they did a really good job of like chat GPTing all the information, except not hallucinating things like chat GPT does. It's a very good book if you're into that kind of thing. So now that I remembered one of the books that I missed, let's see how many books I read. So I read 13 books in April, 7 of which were Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I probably could have read more, but we're going to talk about what I've been reading that has completely bogged down my eyes on paper. And that is Playing at the World by John Peterson. I talked about it before. It is a history of tabletop games. Let me double check. It has a very long, very obnoxious nonfiction title. Playing at the World, a history of simulating wars, people, and fantastic adventures from chess to role-playing games. It is very good. It is a fire hose of information, and it is taking me a long time to read it because it's dense, not in a poorly written way, but in a, wow, there's a lot here. And I do have to say, though, that it is making me contemplate where the line is between comprehensive and beating a dead horse. So I'm reading it on my Kobo, and at the top it tells me how much time until I'm done with the chapter. And then at the bottom, it's got like the percentage of the book I've read. So most chapters are about 20 minutes-ish. And I read a chapter that was about like the early history of like chainmail and kind of how it led into D&D. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. This is like 20 minutes of a chapter. All right, that's good. Well, I get to the end of that and it flips to the next one, and it's about the inspirations for Dungeons and Dragons and kind of whether or not the majority of it was inspired by Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings. And it says it's 35 minutes. And I'm like, holy crap, 35 minutes? And I start reading it and it's like, okay, yep, you proved your point on this. And it's like, okay, you've proved your point again. And it's the same point with slightly different information. And it's like, oh, you did it again. Oh, is this every page for the next 12 pages? Is you reiterating that same thing just in a different way? It's like, how many extra steps were needed for this? Like, yes, it is very comprehensive, but it gets to a point where you're like, I don't need this. It's like a preaching to the choir moment. And so maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm not into it enough, because I will say I got to later chapters where it's talking about the history of chess, and I'm really into that. It's been really interesting. So it's probably just a me thing, but I can never be sure, because literally no one else I know has read Playing at the World or will ever read Playing at the World, especially now that first editions are like $90 or something. So I need to read the second edition. I have volume 1. Yes, they split it into 2 volumes. And now that I'm 30% of the way through the first edition, I can understand why. It's just a lot. I started reading it like the second day of April, and I'm still reading it, and I'm only at like 32% or something. It is a slog at times. I think I've got like 25 hours left of reading. At one point, I was reading before bed, and I read for like 40 minutes, and it said 30 hours left. And then when I closed it, it said 31 hours left. How did that happen? I wasn't reading that slow. It's just a lot of information, and I am tempted to take a break from it, but I do like what I'm reading. It's just very slow going. When it comes to other stuff I'm going to read this month, I I am going to check out By Blood, by Salt by J.L. Odom. I think it just won SFBO 2025. Don't really know what that means because I don't follow SFBO as much as I probably should, but I wanted to give this a try because people have been talking about it a lot lately, and why not? I also managed to find the audio version of Gathered Darkness by Fritz Leiber, and that was part of my project. I said I was going to finish last year and then I didn't, so I might do that. I got a lot of stuff that I really want to try. I'm kind of looking at them all right now. Oh, I got something recently by John Norman. It is the Gore series. I shared it in a book group I'm in, and they were like, ooh, that might not be fun. They gave me warnings about the series, and I'm like, ooh, that might be a bit of a yikes, but I'm gonna give it a try because I got the first few on audiobook, and they're narrated by Ralph Lister, and he is one of the best narrators out there. He did the first 3 Malazan books. I fell in love with his voice, and then they changed it. Now, they changed it to someone just as good, but different, and that was a problem, but I got over it. I really like Ralph Lister, so hopefully these books aren't too terrible. They're short, so I'm going to give them a try. They started coming out of the 1960s. They are very sword and spaceships type thing. It's heavily inspired by John Carter of Mars, but I worry because someone warned me there was like BDSM elements. They were like male power fantasies from the 1960s, so we'll see how that goes. I also plan on reading some romance in the month of May. Not sure what yet. Maybe some more Emily Henry, maybe another author. So I have been getting the itch again to read the Horus Heresy, the Warhammer series that is a prequel to Warhammer 40k. I love the series. I read the first 5 books that are like mandatory. Just read the first 5, then you can go read whatever you want. Then I read whatever I wanted, which was Ultramarines and World Eater stuff. It was all great because I knew it was some of the good stuff. There's some stinkers in the series, but man, I'm really wanting to dive back in. And my problem is I can't decide what legion I want to follow, because that's the thing about the Heresy is you can jump around. Yeah, you could read them all in order if you are just built different and want to dedicate your life to that kind of thing, because I'll tell you right now, there's 55 novels in the Horus Heresy. Then there are another like 7 in the Siege of Terra. And then there's all the like tertiary stuff going on. There's short fiction. I mean, if I had to guess, there's like 200 and something different audio books just for the Horus Heresy, because we're talking about little short snippets and collections and all kinds of things, because you've got the Primarch series, which they're all very bad. I'm tempted to try the others because they're all super short, but man, every single one of them I read sucked. So I'm not sure if that would be worth checking out on top of the Horus Heresy. But man, when it comes to a faction, I really want to read the Blood Angel stuff, because I think that Sanguinius is one of the more interesting Primarchs. Problem being, I've also heard that those books are kind of mid, but I know that some of them involve Sanguinius fighting demons. Blood Angels fighting Khorne demons. And there's an interesting story about the Blood Angels that at one point they were going to die to fighting something else, and Khorne demons showed up and saved the Blood Angels, because only Khorne gets to claim the Blood Angels. They are his, no one else's. You cannot have them. He will take them when it's time to. And I thought that was super fascinating. And I'm like, okay, I am all in on this. And when you see the artwork of Sanguinius, and when you think about how the Horus Heresy is the modern retelling of Paradise Lost by John Milton, then it's like just the symbolism is just over the top. Look at Sanguinius. He's an angel. He's a literal angel. And the entire story is about the fall of mankind from the heavens. And it's just so good. And I really want to get back into it. And the other one I thought about doing was Imperial Fists, because I really like the vibe of Imperial Fists, but Rogel Dorn is like the least interesting Primarch to me. So that's a problem, because when you meet him in some of the early Heresy books, he's just an ass. He's annoying. I know he's stubborn to a fault. That's kind of their deal, is they don't break. But honestly, he's kind of like Iron Warriors, but a little less interesting. Like Perturabo is super interesting, other than the fact that he's such a baby about playing second fiddle to the Imperial Fist. But I wanted to do the Imperial Fist because I've been really tempted to paint an Imperial Fist army, and I like their style. And their style is, we shoot it with guns until it dies, and if it doesn't die, we shoot it with more guns. When they storm us, we do not break, and we keep shooting them, and then we pull out the swords and the shields. And it's just so cool. I love all the different units that are in the Imperial Fists, and painting yellow is a nightmare, but it's a challenge I want to take up. But other than that, I don't know what else I'm going to read. I do have to say, I've been kind of just looking around, kind of figuring out what I want to do next. And I read the first 6 pages of Lord Fowl's Bane, the first book in the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever, and I had a great time with it. I really like the writing. I don't know if it's because the book starts in like a modern setting. The series is Portal Fantasy. in case you were wondering, and kind of the precursor to grimdark, I guess. I don't know, because grimdark has such a nebulous definition that I don't know, plus I haven't read the books, but I really liked what I read so far, and so maybe I'll get into that. I'm not sure. I might do that with my eyeballs, even though the narrator is very good. Scott Brick is awesome. Aside from that, I am open to suggestions on stuff I should check out. I know there's other things I'm going to read, and I'm just forgetting them. I'm blanking, and who cares, because most of my reading is mood reading, other than the Penrick and Desdemona stuff, which, by the way, I'll be reading 3 of those this month, and I'll be done with Penrick and Desdemona, and I will be moving on to the other books of the 5 gods, and then I will have to decide, am I going straight into Verkos again, or am I going to do the Sharing Knife series and kind of get most of her fantasy out of the way before I dedicate the rest of the year to her science fiction? Let me know in the comments how you think I should do it. And when it comes to videos, I am going to try to get some more done. I realize I'm only doing like 4 or 5 videos a month, which I'm not happy with, but stuff's been coming up, so I haven't been able to put as much effort into making stuff as I want. I should have a lot of free time coming up, which will help me get more stuff out there. I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. And with that, I'll see you next time.